And if we're,
Exciting.
yep, good morning.
Good morning, Grand
All right.
Rising, Grand Saturday
Yeah,
Rising.
now it still says it's uploading, but we might be live. A lot
Oh
of
no,
times it does that where
I,
we
I
can't.
think so. It looks like we're live to me.
We're live. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good
All
morning.
right.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy Saturday, Grand Rising. How are you, Jeff?
I'm all right. I just had a bunch of dental work done. That's why we were off this week. I had to get a bunch of stuff, but my teeth are nice now.
I bet they're very nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good. Important. Got to keep your health up, right? It's
that's it.
interesting, this whole thing, make America healthy again. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate we're saying again, make America healthy. Like we should always be healthy, but what I'm thinking about is how expensive it is in this country
Oh
when you
God,
talk about healthcare. I mean, okay, let's
really
make
expensive.
America healthy again. Let's do that. Yeah. And let's make healthcare affordable as well. Let's do that.
Well, let's make everything affordable is
Yeah.
more the real
Yeah.
answer.
The healthcare, the
Everything is just
food, the
going
housing,
skyrocketing.
everything. Let's make it all affordable, please.
Everything, yeah, and no one sees that more than here in California. I mean, wow, the amount of money it takes to live here,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
crazy.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
so many states are like that. I mean, New York, Chicago, so many, I mean, yeah, but California's up there. Arizona's getting to be a little expensive from what I'm hearing too.
oh yeah, everything is. I mean, you can't increase the cost of energy and expect it to stay low. And again, this goes right along with what we've been, one of the things I haven't been mentioning for a while, but I was mentioning in the last few years was we just came through a Neptune square Mars on the United States from about 2021 forward. It was actually happening three times. Talk about deception and blowing smoke up your rear end. I mean, that is really clearly what has been happening. And then the United States also had a Neptune opposition Neptune. And that actually happened right during the Civil War. And we've had all of that happening on top of the Pluto return. So it's been really powerful on this country and the world at large.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're living it, right? We're definitely living it.
We're living
So
it. Yeah.
we have a new moon coming up on Monday, and we're going to do a
We do.
special on that we're going to release on Monday. A powerful new moon, right? I believe it's in
Yeah.
Virgo. Very interesting new
Well,
moon.
it's in Virgo in the tropical system, but it's in Leo. And it's going to be a good podcast because I want to get into, a lot of astrologers are hardcore tropicalists. They say the only zodiac that's accurate is the tropical. And other astrologers say no, the only zodiac that's accurate is the sidereal. And I have to say, I find them both accurate. It's just the way you look at it. It's perspective and it's really cool stuff to look at. So we're going to get into a little bit of that and show why each one has efficacy, but they're different. Astrology is complex enough, let alone to have two completely separate, different, entirely complex systems.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really interesting to look at and share
Yeah,
with everyone. So
yeah, yeah.
today, I know you were talking about, uh, you said something to me a little while ago, and I wanted you to expound upon that today. You said when you're looking at astrology, you're really studying the portals of creation. And that just really hit me. I thought, wow, that is so powerful. The,
Yeah, it,
the
it
portals
is.
of creation. So
Yeah,
go into that,
exactly.
please.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it really is. I'm going to share the computer screen again because I really like to show certain diagrams. And you got to look at what is astrology. Most people who are in the left brain linear world, they roll their eyes at astrology. I know I was one of those. And, I have to say, I've been studying a lot of Carl Jung lately. I've been going back to him because Jung was at least open-minded enough. Of course, he was born in the 1860s. And for anyone who knows who I'm speaking about, you're familiar. But to those who don't, Carl Jung was the psychiatrist who had joined forces with Freud in the earlier years and then broke off with him because Jung got into astrology. And more than that, he also got into a lot of very different looks at life in terms of spirituality and who we are. And he talked about the angels that are with every single dwelling. Now, this is exactly what we say in, Vastu and so on and so forth. This is a book I really like. He actually says the earth has a soul. And it's
Wow.
interesting because once you
Wow.
start
Love
getting
that.
back into the older cultures, everyone realized that this was a spiritual world and that we were a part of that. Where I think ever since Darwinianism, or you could say the modern scientific age, we have completely broken off. And now, I'm hearing all the nanobot technology that's being put into stuff, not only into pesticides, but into foods. They're wanting to put nanobot technology in everything, which means, I remember seeing these 40 years ago, seeing these patents floating around in the patent office. I was actually working in the patent, system back then, filing patents. And I had heard about all this stuff going on, this nanotechnology. Well, here we roll the clock forward, 40 years from now. And we are clearly in a situation where we are now into a world that's almost like a psychozoic world. It's really crazy. They're trying to dehumanize everyone and, eliminate the population, all this crazy stuff that we're hearing. And we literally have a global new one world order trying to encroach upon us. And again, this is fitting with the theme that we've been talking about. Our last podcast was about Uranus going over the seven sisters in the Pleiades, and also how powerful all these cycles are on the entire world. And it really, really is. And what's the whole thing is all about is you can't negate creation. And going full circle back to what you just asked, let me show you this diagram. One of my favorite diagrams, if I get it back up here, was this one. And, no matter what your faith, belief, or whatever, divinity or creation, whatever you want to call it, God, what have you, is way up here above creation. And I mentioned this diagram many times. There's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions in all of these worlds. But the celestial, physical, formative worlds don't form until down here in the Yetziratic world, hundreds of dimensions below divinity or creation. And they say our soul might be created right about here. All souls are. And souls are such different fabric when you study about them. And again, myself and no one's going to ever fully understand this using this state of consciousness. But this is really cool stuff, because what is astrology? Well, a lot of people aren't familiar with Nadi astrology, spelled Nadi. Some people use two A's, but it is an older branch, in my opinion, of Vedic astrology. And what I love about it is, again, it is the science of the journey of the soul. And so, what is astrology? And I think astrologers spend too much time on astrology itself without taking a broader view and saying, well, what is astrology? Astrology is literally the portals that rain down onto creations. And I use that plurally because obviously this earth is not the only place where there's life. But the Yetziratic worlds is where Yetzir is just a fancy word that means formation, or it's an Aramaic Hebrew word that means formation. So it's a good word when you pick it apart and you look at its etymology, because it actually means formation of spirit into matter. And when we look at that, what is the fixed stars and all the planets and the matrix that we're in? And there's nothing that strikes me more. It's interesting because I had a bunch of dental work done this week, so I had some time to really lay in the bed and read, And I always go back to all the books that I love to read. And one of the things that strikes me is the lunar mansions or the lunar mansion system that is around this earth. And again, I always go back to this particular, if I can get my cursor here to work, there we go. It's stuck. So there, now I got it free. This little diagram right here is actually quite useful. As soon as I find it, yeah, here it is. Where we have a lunar mansion that is in between the moon and the earth. And this is actually another type of zodiac. Western astrologers typically aren't familiar with this. And again, they're called nakshatras. And I'm just amazed at how accurate they are, because one of the most powerful charts that for years I've been studying is called the Navamsha. A Navamsha is a strange word that just means the ninth divisional chart. Well, what's interesting is creation itself. They actually say the fire that happens within the womb starts right here. And there's a deity called Nutri who comes out in Sagittarius,
Jeff,
where, yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off. Everybody's saying they can't, the show hasn't started.
well, they're on a different channel. They're on your old channel. That's why. You see, you put up a notice,
Yes.
and yeah, and so
Oh,
they need to go to that.
oh, so what do I tell them? Just go to the channel?
Yeah, just go to our channel live, and they'll see us live right now.
Oh, shoot. Let me,
Yeah, see, I was afraid of that. You put up a notice, which is great, but see, they're all waiting for that, and we're on a different channel because we didn't initiate that channel live, so we went on a new channel. That's
and we went over this the last time. We totally forgot. We made this mistake
yeah,
before. Let's just wait a second until people, or
yeah,
we can cut this chunk out. We'll
sure.
wait until people can find us. Um,
Yeah, you just tell them to go to the other live that's running right now. See, we're going to get this figured out where we can actually schedule a live through Zoom, and then what'll happen is we'll be able to go live. We just didn't today. We started a new channel.
totally spaced.
And see, unless you schedule it through Zoom, you can't do that.
That's how I got here. Close. We'll close and reopen.
Yeah.
Right, people went to that link. Please disregard that link.
Right. Disregard that link and go to the next live that's running, and then they'll be fine. And they can rewatch it later too.
She's saying it's still not working.
Well, we're live. I mean, you're
Uh,
seeing.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we're live.
Let me make sure.
Mhm.
Let me go there.
Yeah, you should be live.
Oh my gosh. Ah, it's always, always, always.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, this
but
technology, you got to look on the bright side, and it's easier to.
yes. Uh,
We
uh,
should be live on that. I'm going there right now just to see if it's live. We should be.
yep, it says live.
Yeah, we should be. Yeah, they just go to the first one that's running. Yep, I can see it right now. Yep, we're running. Yep, we're running. So we just got to keep going. So, anyways, people will figure it out. There's not much else we can do. Anyways, you were talking about the portals, that astrology is the portals of creation, and it really is. And I have to say the tropical systems are very accurate, but the sidereal systems with the lunar mansions and all the divisions and the vamshas is really telling. Point in case, my son has been extremely emotional. And when I look at tropical astrology, I can see why. He certainly has Saturn transiting the moon. He's got a lot of, hard aspects going on, but nothing depicts it more accurately than the sidereal lunar mansions and the dasha he's in, meaning the Time Lord, and also how it configures. It's so accurate. It's creepy. It's absolutely amazing. So you just get a much more deeper angelic matrix in the lunar mansions with the sidereal. So, and tropical works too. It definitely works. I love tropical, but I also find if you're not looking into the depths of Nadi astrology, you're going to kind of hit a wall in the depth that you can go. And a lot of astrologers just extrapolate using their intuition and just rambling on about the various different aspects that they know about in the astrology. Whereas in the sidereal, you really can get specifics. And even still, you have to extrapolate there. But it's a profound system. And what it proves to me is that we are in a very complex matrix of creation that's interacting with all of us on an individual conscious basis. And it's absolutely stunning how the divisions of this lunar mansions, as well as everything that's happening in the rest of your chart, is so depicted by the Nadi astrology. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely is. And why not be open to all of it? I mean,
Well, that's it.
why not be open to all of it, especially the ancient, what we call the ancient astrology. That's the most fascinating to me, honestly,
Yeah. Well, that's
because
what Nadi is. That's what Nadi is, and
that
also the
that's
tradition.
right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
what Nadi is. And when you think about it, they didn't have programs back then, right?
Oh God, no.
They were still nailing it. They didn't
Yeah.
have programs back then. So
Yeah, they were
clearly
nailing it. Yeah,
angels brought this to them.
I came in the era right when all that was kind of ending, which was BC, before computers. And, I had a chance to study with a lot of the old guys who really knew what they were doing, and they had tables. And this is exactly what we saw back in the 1600s, all the way back to the BC era. They would have tables that were charted, and they would use astrolabes to go out and find out where the stars were, and they'd plot longitude and latitude. Pretty, pretty impressive, actually, for that long ago to be that accurate. And I have to say, I have a lot of example charts from many hundreds of years ago, and they're pretty accurate, I have to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because a lot of astrologers reference William Lilly, who was back in the 1600s, right? And
He
they
was
they
he was the
use his
caboose.
work.
Lilly, everyone knows about Lilly who studies traditional astrology. And for anyone who doesn't know, classical and slash traditional astrology is tropical, but it is pre 1700s. And Lilly was kind of I call him the caboose of the train, because he was kind of the last of the traditional astrologers. And some people argue he wasn't completely traditional because he used some variations. But if you go back, particularly from about 300 BC forward, particularly 4, 5, 6, 800 AD, my God, the astrology was stunning. I mean, absolutely stunning. And that's not my opinion. That's a fact. I can show you documents that prove it. And the Arabian Nights had a lot to do with saving this stuff. Many of the sultans and the kings and various different kingdoms in Italy and Spain, they all realized the value of this ancient knowledge, and they went out of their way to translate it into various different languages. And today we have so many translations coming out now in English. And the reason why, most of it was in Arabic, it was in Coptic, it was in Greek, a lot of stuff in Greek, and Sanskrit. And of course, the English speaking world had no way to realize it. Well, Lilly was so popular. In fact, I remember back in the 80s, Robert Hand and Olivia Barclay are pretty much the people who were responsible for exposing Lilly again. And Regulus actually published that book, and I have it, in the 80s, which was Lilly's Christian Astrology. And it's a book about this thick, pretty amazing. And what I like about it is it has a lot of examples. And of course, it's written in the older English. All the S's look like F's, and took a
No,
while
it's
to understand.
awesome. You gave that book to me. Yeah, it's really awesome. Hello, everyone. So sorry about the mix up. A lot of people are just catching up to the live. It's a confusion with YouTube
Yeah.
and Zoom. We'll get it down for next time. So sorry about that. So sorry.
Yeah,
Morning,
she put up a
Cosmere.
notice without just us going live, which
Yeah.
is good she did, but the live link
No,
didn't
no,
go.
I'll link it. I'll link it next time. So sorry about that. Jeff, I do want to, I don't want to miss this question. Again, morning, Cosmere, morning, everyone. Cosmere is asking, who's your favorite astrologer, if you have one, or astrologers?
Um,
I know Benatti.
well, in the Western world, yeah, I would say I really like Rabbi Ibn Ezra. Oh, amazing stuff. He was in the 11th century. Benatti, too, was just about a century past that. Mashallah, and various different astrologers who came out of Baghdad, out of Egypt. Really amazing stuff. Mashallah certainly one. Those are the earlier ones. Abu Mushar was another one. There's many that I like, and I don't know that I have a favorite. I really like Ibn Isra. There's a book called The Beginning of Wisdom. It's actually on my website, and if it's not, we'll put it up there, which is astounding because now you're back in the 11th century. You can see the angel sigils that he had for the planets and for the signs. See, now you're getting back to where the connection between divinity and angelic forces were tied to the astrology and how it was an interactive consciousness and really, really powerful. Now, when you go to the other side of the fence, Nadi astrology, I really like V.B. Raman. He's long gone now. His daughter, I think, is still carrying on the work. Krishnamurti was good too. That's another Krishnamurti other than the one in Ojai. There's many texts that are good. Some of the modern texts I have mentioned, I can't remember its name right now, but quite good. This is a really good book, Insight into Nadi, and it's actually a student of V.B. Raman. Of course, he's now in his, I don't even know if he's alive anymore, but yeah, it's I'll be lucky if I live 3 lifetimes to fully ever figure all this stuff out, because what you're really figuring out is the interaction of the creation. It's so interesting. This morning I heard my son was really upset in his bedroom, and I got up about 7 o'clock and I went in there and I could hear him. He was really upset, and I just put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "You're just going through some really powerful emotional energies." And it's exactly what his Nadi astrology shows, meaning the Time Lord he's in, called a Darsha, and the transits and the progressions show this, but nothing shows it as accurately as the interactions of the lunar mansions I was talking about before. And for anybody who's just joined now that we're live, let me put that back up. See, the lunar mansions, and depending on which type of astrology you study, there's 27 lunar mansions in the older Nadi astrology, and then other ones use the 28 lunar mansions. So again, there's an old saying, God might have confused all the astrologers, and I think there's definitely some merit to that one. Just like God divided all the languages, right?
Yeah.
The Tower of Babel story. Well, I think the same thing happened in astrology, because there's so many diverse techniques, and I've been just crazy enough to study most of them. And I can tell you, you'll never figure all this out. And I always go back to the story where this rabbi had this angel bring him books on astrology, and he read it, was just amazed at the impact on the soul. And as fast as he read, the ink on the page disappeared. And he said to the angel, he said, "Why is this happening?" He said, "Because we don't want this knowledge left
Wow.
in the world, because you humans need to experience life by your own trials and errors,
Right.
and depend on the consciousness and the soul to guide you." So really interesting stuff. So, that's a big dispute. A lot of people say, well, astrology is predicting the future and I don't want to know. Well, then you shouldn't know, but what I like about knowing is you can actually make your consciousness be better
Right.
if you
Right.
pay attention. Anyways, you could see here, this is the moon, and obviously it's going around the earth every 28 and a half days or thereabouts. And what's interesting is it passes through all these what we call nakshatras. See, what nak means is the sky, and shaktra means map. So that means the map of the sky. And of course, it's the final touches of angelic forces that are interacting on the most dense layer, which is us down here. So it's really, really profound stuff. And again, for anybody who hasn't joined, that other diagram that I had up, which I really like, which is the one that I use often, it shows the 4 major worlds of creation, which again, starts up with divinity, or God, if you will, and then the souls are created here. And there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions. These upper 2 worlds are supposedly really, really divine. And there's no worlds just like this. It's very, very spiritual. It's the Yetziratic world. This is where astrology, as we would know it, would begin. And of course, you've got myriads of galaxies, and they claim there's or I should say 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions in each one. And this is where a lot of the secrets of the Bible and the Psalms and many other texts really depict all these things, like the 72 angels of Exodus, which rule the quintessences of the zodiac, and the 24 wings of the wind, which are the dual angels that rule each of the 12 signs. It really gets deep. And then you have the astral planes, which is, and then of course we pass through that and we're here. Well, what's interesting is that lunar mansion I was just talking about has a lot to do with the influences on the astral worlds or the psyche. And of course, here we sit in the middle. And I was mentioning before, for anybody who hasn't joined us, I've been getting back into Carl Jung, who was the psychiatrist who broke away from Freud because of astrology. And, he talked about how the disassociation of modern society to the soul is really a problem. And, that's, of course, looking at from a more left brain psychiatric point, but he's right. And he talks about the importance of getting in nature, getting in touch. Like I just took this trip. It's so good for the soul to just break your environment and go get in touch with the world itself. I love driving across the deserts. It's awesome because you see the mountains and, all the different nature influences.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm all for that. Take me away. Back in the day, there used to be a commercial. My mom would always reference when she got annoyed with life, and she would say, Calgon, take me away. It was like this bubble bath. She told me
right.
Bubbles that you put in the bath water and just take me away. We all want to get away. And it is good for the soul to get away, to have a shift, in our lives energetically. So important.
Well, there's an old saying, we all go crazy in congregations.
Oh,
and we only get better one by one. And a lot of times that one by one is clearly where we're at. Sorry about the camera there. But
yeah. Let me throw two questions at you. Someone is asking, Magic Vibes, how can one know the name of our angel in our chart? Now, maybe you're referring to the
ascendant.
The ascendant? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the angel and the ascendant, right. Not the one in the centerfold, but the one in the ascendant, right. So the point is that you got to do it in sidereal astrology. You literally have to take and cast your birth chart in sidereal astrology, and you take the sidereal degree that's ascending on the eastern horizon. And there's so many secrets to that. Not only do you have the angel, but you also have the angels in the lunar mansions and what they call the divisions called the padas or navamshas, which is stunning. There's actually 108 navamshas, and they match all the divisions of the 27 lunar mansions. And it's really a cohesive system that is very less understood today. And it's one of great interest for me because I see the accuracy in it. And we've got a lot of forces that interact on us. And I really have to say, it's divine. The Romans used to do a ritual outside of a city before they would attack it to chase away the angel. They say every house has an angel, every person has an angel, and there's myriads of them. But there's certain ones that seem to take precedence, and the eastern horizon on your ascendant certainly seems to be a strong one. I'll say that. I find that is an underlying force that is really apparent in your life. And the only way to get that is to calculate it sidereally. And you also have to make sure your birth time is very, very accurate, because if it's off, you'll get the wrong angel. And that often is one of the elements I use. I read the energy, but I also use that too to kind of check if the person I'm talking to doesn't match that. And I often find when I get the chart right on, it's amazing because I'll mention the traits of that energy and they'll go, oh my God, yeah, that's what I'm all about. And I'm like, yeah. You see, so you can really see the underlying energies, and I've seen really nasty ones too. I've had individuals who were just absolutely wonderful, and you could see it in that eastern horizon. And I had other ones who really had challenges where they had really intense energies that they always had to overcome. and
Yeah.
it would make them mean to people or do whatever it was that, it said. So, and that's again, maybe a soul force energy that came here to cure itself. And the earth seems to be, I always call it the soul cauldron because it really seems to be the place where you come to play out a lot of the, you could say, karmic energies that we were here to grow from. And it's not just astrology working on us. It's much more divine. It's coming through. We got our birth charts and our birth time when we drew first breath due to the karmic journey we're on. And I think the biggest lie ever told is that we all die. Because, yeah, we do die for sure. Genetically, we die, but we do not die in the psyche, the spirit, and the soul, and the consciousness absolutely lives on, in my opinion. There's no question about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Universal Ohm is asking, what does it matter what house Pluto is in?
Oh, well, I think every house matters. A house has to kind of look as an area of life. And for anybody not familiar, houses in astrology are what we call the terrestrial uh, play out of energy, meaning, when your eastern horizon is always called your ascendant, right? And then you have the first house, which is the sense of self, your well-being, your physical body, what's happening to you directly. Your second house is money and resources and power. See, so, and then the third house is siblings, brothers and sisters, neighbors, and it's also daily routines and travels. The fourth house is home and family. So these are basic traits. It gets a lot deeper in the Nadi astrology, where they literally look at karmas, where you can actually see like the sixth house is karma you cannot change. You are born into certain families, you have to live with what you get, and that is probably enlightened upon us all for spiritual growth. And many of us have charmed childhoods. Many of us don't. I can attest to that one. And the interesting thing is it makes you grow. There's an old saying, it builds character, right? So we all get what we have. And the point is that each of the houses matter. So when you put Pluto in a house, to answer your question directly, Pluto is always transformation. And a lot of astrologers look at Pluto as either power, transformation, transmutation, all this type of stuff. And it's very powerful. So, if you got it natally placed in a house, it's going to affect you in that area of life. If you have it transiting that house, then it's going to affect your life too. You got to remember, Pluto takes almost 250 years to go around the chart. So that's not going to happen to somebody twice. You'll be lucky if you live long enough to see it go, a quarter of the way around the chart. That's almost 90 years, So it's a long, long time. So actually, it's more than 90 years. So Pluto's not going to move very far in your house unless you live to be over 100. Or through your houses. So it's likely not to be more than a few houses from where it was when you were born. You can get it more than that. Pluto doesn't move at a steady rate. Pluto has an elliptical orbit, so it tends to move faster and slower depending on the era you were born in. But there's something to Pluto when you look at eras. Like today, you look at people, they're a lot different than they were. You can see it in the movies. Just look at the faces and the gruffness of people that you used to see back who were born in the 1800s, the early 1900s. There was a lot more toughness to them. If you look at where Pluto was in the sidereal zodiac, it's pretty interesting. It kind of fits it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. We were talking about that not too long ago. Very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Very interesting stuff. Yeah.
We've got Rocky Stucci Jr. joining us.
Wow.
And I really
Right.
connect with this question. Can you consciously, in one lifetime, avoid reincarnation through thought, actions, and intention?
Wow, that's a good one.
Good
The
one.
theory is yes. In fact, that is probably another thing I would accuse the religions of is if you look at Exodus in the Bible, it was all about escaping. What does Exodus mean? It means escaping from Alcatraz, escaping from your karma or the dharma that, you're here to do. And it really was all about the ancient knowledge was from the spring equinox to the fall equinox, there's 6 lunations. And people would go out in the wilderness. We hear the same thing. Jesus went out for 40 days, right? All these people went out in the wilderness, right? Got in touch with nature. And this is the same thing with the Tibetan lamas, the yogis. No matter where you go, it's like if humanity gets away from all the, stuff and interaction of egos between us, we purify. We start going back to the natural state of where humanity's real soul lies. Because you look at all the wars and you look at all the conflicts, and now it's just lawsuits, right? Everybody's suing everybody. And of course, we still have wars. It's really insane. And again, we go crazy in congregations. We tend to get better one by one. And that's what the old method was, is you would go in and you would purify the soul. It was actually it started for a year and a half, which was a total of, the 12 lunations plus 6, which was 18 months. And really interesting. They said if you purify enough, a guardian angel will actually appear to you and teach you how to quell the evil spirits. That's actually in a couple of different texts. The main, most lucid one was the Book of Abramelin, which is really quite an interesting book. And it's
very interesting.
not another book like it.
Very
and
interesting.
Talking to people in modern society, we all got car insurance, we get the bills, we get this, we get that, and the doctors and this and the lawyers, and we're all caught up in this quagmire of modern mechanistic society. And this is exactly what Jung spoke about, the great psychologist who actually turned much to astrology in his latter years and spirituality. And that's the biggest thing I find when you study astrology. And that's why I really gravitated towards the Vedantic and the Nadi astrology, because it isn't just astrology. It's spirituality and journey of the soul combined with astrology. The astrology was the portals at which it interacted with, but you still had to deal with the elements of the soul, or you'd keep reincarnating. Right. So the only way to truly escape from Alcatraz is to truly change the psyche and the soul so that it purifies. And I think that's what Earth is. I really do. I think it's a place of purification and rectification of the soul and experience as well. Yeah. Because it certainly seems to be that way. And if, the more you go up against it, the more it goes up against you,
Right, right. So we can look at it as a blessing to be here on Earth.
Yeah. My son was so sad this morning, and I kept telling him, I said, Aiden, you're going to come out of this a much higher, a spiritual awareness. And, I keep telling him he's got a Venus Dasha, an exalted Venus Dasha coming when he's 26 years old. Watch and I mean, throw the chart away. He'll be happier than you can imagine because of the yogas and how good it looks. But he's really got a challenging time right now. And he had such a charmed childhood. His childhood was like a storybook. We had the best time. And, now he's going through a tough time in his early 20s. And we all get these phases. He's also going through Sati Sate, which is Saturn transiting of the moon. And it's his first one. I remember my first one. Oh, my God. I was just like, it was happened in my teenage years. It'll happen to all of us at different points and times in our lives. See, Sati Sate is a fancy word, or I should say a very sacred word, that actually means the 7.5-year period that Saturn, the planet of karma, releases over the moon, which is the mind. It is our conscious perception of reality. And really fascinating, because every person will get that at least 2 and potentially 3 times in their lifetime. You'll be pretty old when you get your third one, depending on when it starts. So now he was born with the Saturn ahead of the moon by just 2 signs. So that means it takes 28.5 years for Saturn to go around. So he's getting it in his early 20s, you see. Right. So it's just math. It's just cycles. But I think what's so valuable about knowing that is you act differently. Again, it's like driving a car. If you know your conditions, you operate differently. You try and operate at the highest spiritual awareness and consciousness and get the most you can out of it. And that's really important. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll give you one more. And I love this. No BS Granny is asking.
That's a good one. I like that.
Great one.
I want to meet her. I had a grandma just like that. No BS. She liked you had a dinner, and if she didn't, you had your foot up, or her foot was up your rear end, kicking you out the door.
Grandma Beulah. What do you think of October 23rd or 24th and the square with the four gas giants and Earth in the center? Anything to worry about?
I mean, squares always bring change. And, this is again in the backdrop of the bigger picture of the Pluto return on the United States and on the world, this Uranus retrograding back over these very powerful fixed stars in the Pleiades. And it's going to do that right in October. So very close to when she's talking about. And yes, those squares always bring change. And the reason squares do is if you look at the elements that they're in, squares always mix odd things like earth and fire, or earth and air, or fire and water. You see, they always are not congruent. That's why they bring change. They always make you slow down, stop, take a right or a left, or do something different in order to proceed. So squares always bring change. And I can tell you, it's saddening, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but we are. And I mean, can you believe we're hearing the words World War III out of the mouths of so many people in the media and in different people in politics? And I hate to say it, that's exactly what the symbolism in astrology shows. And this always is a reflection of tyranny going up against freedom. And it is. And when you see this is, depending on which side of the fence you're on, and, no matter where you are, whether you're in, one side of the fence or another, and all these wars that are going on right now, everybody has their viewpoint. And that's why we get wars. And squares bring that to change. And this whole thing with Uranus that I've been speaking about, if anybody hasn't heard, you can listen to the last podcast we just did, which is, what was the name of that thing? It was the time of change or something? Yes.
You mean
The podcast we just did. Yeah.
the podcast we just did.
Yeah.
That was our on the brink of drastic
Change.
Change. Yeah.
Right. On the brink of drastic change. Thanks for finding that, because I couldn't remember. But yeah, I mean, and that's actually what I'm saying in there. So what she's saying about these gas giants being square, absolutely. Plus we got Mars coming to a screeching halt and going retrograde right in December. And that's going to kick back over a bunch of things too. So, it never stops. This is the soul cauldron.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really study astrology, it never stops. You'll never be out of something to talk about because it's always interacting with creation. I think what blows me away is how intricately it does it with each soul. there's mass, effect on the earth, which is the mundane astrology, but then that is interacting with each soul in its own unique way. Some people will really grow, some people will have challenges, and some people will exit the body. So there's all kinds of stuff going on here. And like I said, if I live three lifetimes, I'll be lucky to figure out half of this. This is the code of angels. It really is. The astrology truly is the portals of creation interacting on each soul. It's absolutely amazing.
So incredible. So incredible.
It sure is. Yeah,
Casimir,
sure.
I did ask Jeff your question. Unless you posed the second one, I did get to it. Jeff responded, who's his favorite astrologer. So just please go back once we finish.
My only problem is I got an appointment and
look
I'm out of time. I got to fly here.
Oh, no, I know. And what I'm going to do, actually, there are some great questions here, a few more. I'm going to log them and we can look at these.
Yeah, we'll get it on another live. Yeah,
Yep.
but if I run, I'm
We'll
going to be.
we'll get these on our next live for sure. We absolutely will. So Monday, we're going to be going into the new moon because there's a lot going on with that new moon.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It's a powerful one. Yeah. You got Uranus stationing on the first, you got a new moon in the second, and very powerful new moon.
Very powerful. Yes.
They all are. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, everyone. I'm sorry we can't get to all the questions. We've got to make these lives a little bit longer. Jeff has a session coming up, so and then we got thrown off because some people, it's my fault. My fault. That won't happen again. Trust me. But have a beautiful weekend. We'll get it all together. Have a beautiful weekend.